And so good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week marks the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. Earth Day is 50 years old now, and over 200 countries celebrate Earth Day, and each year over 1 billion people are motivated, are activated to respond some way to the earth, to the environment, to sustainable living, to air quality, water quality. And today I wanted to do the talk. It's called Hearth and Home. Of course, if you looked at the graphic, I changed the color of the word earth inside of Hearth and Home. And we're going to do an experiential activity today in our talk. And I'd like to work through the 6 elements meditation, a very powerful meditation that the Buddha talked about in the Mahima Sutra. And so what I'd like to do right now is open with this poem by Jan Harjo. Remember the sky that you were born under? Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon? Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving away of the night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are living poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, changing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is. Remember the dance that life is. Remember. And so these sense gates that I spoke about as we came out of the meditation, man's eyes, ears, nose, body, were all made as picture-taking tools from birth. And the mind is where the pictures taken of the world are stored. What we call karma, or in the Christian tradition, sin, is taking pictures of that which belongs to the world and living in those pictures in one's mind. Instead of having a mind that is one with the world, so such a person that lives in the pictures and the snapshots that all of our sense doors take of the world, this is the person who has forgotten who they are. In the Christian tradition, a sinner, or in the Buddhist practice, this is unconsciousness. One who has accumulated karma. And so because one has lost or forgotten the origin that is the world by making and living in their own world, these snapshots, these pictures that all the sense doors and sense gates take, and we live in that world instead of living in the world as it is. My teacher used to say, we see the world as we are, not as it is. It's the same teaching, the same lesson there. And so a powerful practice to help us to remember is the 6-element meditation. And in this meditation, we will work through the 6 elements: earth, water, fire, air, space, and consciousness. As we move from the gross to the subtle, as we realize that these elements are in the earth and these elements are in us. We are not separate from the earth, and it is not separate from us. We are one and the same. The 6-element practice is a profound contemplation on interconnectedness, impermanence, and insubstantiality. It is one of the most significant insight practices in the Pali Canon. The Buddha recommended it as a way of not neglecting wisdom. And so, I would like to invite you now to cultivate a meditative state. Perhaps shift your posture, make an adjustment, close your eyes and go within, and turn these words into a felt experience as we explore the reality of our interconnectedness with the earth, with change, and with flow. First, we call to mind the earth element within ourselves. The earth element is everything solid and resistant, everything that gives us form. Notice, first of all, those aspects of the body that you can directly experience: the physical presence of the weight of the body, the feeling of the sitting bones, the pressing into the cushion. Can you sense your hands? Now take a deep conscious breath. And feel the air as it enters the body, holding it for a moment, and then releasing slowly. And become aware of the feeling as the air is released. We call to mind the flesh, the muscles, the bones, the kidneys, the heart, the liver, the diaphragm, every other conceivable solid matter in the body. And this is not about engaging the thinking mind or starting any trains of thought about the various organs. Instead, we simply invite ourselves to visualize these organs and simply know that they are there and that they are composed of a solid matter. Feeling the feet, the lower back, the stomach, the lungs. Anything solid within this body. And now from here we will move to reflect on everything solid within the body, and everything solid externally is the same earth element. There's really no me. There is no earth element or other earth element. It is all the same stuff. We normally think of our form, our body, as being us, as being ourselves. But here Here we recollect how everything of the earth element that is within us comes from outside and returns to the outside. These bodies are made of earth elements and will return to earth elements. As an embryo in our mother's wombs, we absorb nutrients from the world, from the outside world that the mother's bloodstream would send to us. And she would devour plants and animals, and those foodstuffs that she devoured and then were then nourished us as small embryos. But those foodstuffs are not me either, nor are they her. And from that point on in our life, every molecule that has contributed to the earth element in this body has come from the outside. We can visualize the flow of the earth element from fields and soil, rain, sun, and wind as it nourished the plants and the animals that were devoured by our mother, given to us, that we now devour. All of this solid matter within this body, and not a single bit of it was self-originated. It's all borrowed. And we have to give it back. In fact, we are giving it back every moment of our lives. The earth element within us is returning to the outside world right this very moment. We shed hair and skin cells when we go to the bathroom, when we exhale. So the earth element within us is borrowed, and it's always returning to the outside world, flowing through us like a river. And as we recollect the earth element flowing this way, we can then reflect, this is not me, this is not mine, and I am not this. There's not even a question of letting go. The earth element never was us. It never was ours. We were never holding on to it. How can we cling to something that is flowing, like trying to grab a hold of a river? And so here, this earth element provides the template for the remaining physical elements, which are all treated in the same way. We will recollect this element within us, reflect that everything that is us is really just borrowed from the outside world, and constantly returning to it. And now a conscious breath together. Holding that breath for a moment and releasing. Let us bring to mind now the element of water. And so, the element of water, all that is within this body that is liquid. The saliva in the mouth, the blood, sweat, the feeling of moisture in the out-breath. All that is in this body that is liquid, that permeates and surrounds every cell of this body. Even though you cannot experience these things directly, you can know that they are there. Sensing, feeling the blood as it moves through our veins. And now we contemplate the water element outside of ourselves, calling to mind the oceans, the rivers, the streams, the water that permeates the soil, the rain, and the water inside the plants and animals that we devour. We see, hear, and feel these things as we recall our experience of them. Next, we recognize that all of the water within this body, which we often think of as us, as ours, as ourselves, is in reality simply borrowed for a short time from outside of us. We do not own it. There is only one water element. There's no me water and then the earth water. And so we reflect on this element of water, knowing that this is not me, this is not mine, and I am not this. Conscious breath. Holding that breath for just a moment and releasing slowly. Bringing to mind now the element of fire. The Buddha defined the fire element as that by which one is warmed, ages, and is consumed, and that by which what is eaten gets completely digested. In other words, the fire element within is our metabolism. It is our energy. In meditation, we can experience the heat of the body, feeling the cooler air as we inhale, as it contrasts with the warmth of the air as it leaves the body. Feeling the heart pumping, calling to mind the many different chemical combustions taking place at the cellular level, the spark of electricity as it flashes within muscles, nerves, and the brain. And knowing that all of this energy is borrowed from the fire element outside of us. The fire element outside is raw physical energy in the universe. From the nuclear fusion of the sun to the warmth of a cup of coffee in the morning. From the molten core of our planet to the chemical energy stored in our food as fat, sugars, and proteins. We fuel the body by taking in the sun's energy stored in the plants, stored in our flesh, in our skin. Because the fire element is forever leaving us, radiating out from our skin, wafting away on exhaled air, lost in the warmth of our clothing, our pillow as we leave it in the morning. You can feel the warmth. There's the fire element. We observe and reflect on this, and as we observe the energy within the body, we can be aware that it's actually another river, a river of energy, passing through this form that is really not ours at all. This is not me, and this is not mine, and I am not this. Conscious breath, holding for a moment and releasing. And as we release, we call to mind now the element of air. The air in our lungs, the air within the body itself, the gases that are dissolved within our blood, in our fat. We are immediately aware of breathing. We are aware that air is flowing rhythmically in and out of the body. So almost simultaneously, we recall the air element inside and outside of us, surrounding us, touching the skin in this very moment. The winds, the cloud, and the breezes that we hear and see moving the branches and the grasses. We are taking in and giving out this element right now. Right now, the air element is entering and leaving the body. Right now, air is entering. Oxygen is dissolving into the bloodstream, being taken into cells to provide energy. Where's the boundary between inner air and outer air? You cannot find it. There is only one air element, and what is within us is simply borrowed for a few moments. We cannot hold on to the air element any more than we can hold on to any of the other elements. To hold on to your air is to die. And so we reflect that the air element, like the other physical elements, is not me, not mine, and I am not this. Conscious breath, holding for just a moment and releasing. And as we release, we bring to mind now the element of space. Space is a strange and different element. It is simply there. We cannot see it. We cannot touch it. We cannot say how far it extends. We cannot even say what, if anything, it is made of. According to Einstein, space expands and contracts depending on what velocity we are moving at, and it gets bent out of shape by the presence of solid matter. That is all very hard for the brain to understand, conditioned as it is to think in paltry dimensions. But there is one thing that the mind knows about space, which is that there is space that is me, there is space that is not me. In one of his less mathematical and more religious moments, Einstein said, "A human being is part of a whole, called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts, his feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness." But as we are sitting with our eyes closed in meditation, can we feel any sharp division between me space and not me space? Without the eyes, the optical delusion of there being a delineation between inner and outer, the body loses its sense of having fixed boundaries. The hands no longer have 5 fingers. They have become just a mass of interwoven sensations, tingling, warmth, pressure. The whole body becomes a fuzzy ball of energy. The passing car that you hear, is the sound inside or is it outside? The sound waves are happening in the air outside, but all hearing takes place in the brain, which is inside. The assumptions begin to show cracks. They begin to show questions. Space isn't really divided into me space and not me space. It is all one space, and it flows through us, in us, around us. Space is just borrowed, and we cannot own it. It is not mine. It is not me, and I am not this. Conscious breath. Holding this breath for just a moment and releasing slowly. Now we bring to mind the element of consciousness. Somehow in the evolution of the material universe, life has arisen. And in the evolution of life, consciousness has come into being. Perhaps we could say that consciousness is all the other elements knowing themselves. The Buddha introduces the element of consciousness in this way. And then there remains only consciousness, bright and purified. We've started to realize at this stage of our practice that there's nothing that we can grasp a hold of. And so our mind now turns its attention to itself, the grasper. In this stage of the practice, we notice and reflect upon the way in which sensations, thoughts, images, emotions, habitual patterns come into being, persist for a while, and then vanish into emptiness. None of them is permanent. All are simply passing through us in the same way that earth, water, fire, air, and space elements are flowing through our physical form. So these elements of consciousness are not intrinsic to us, are not a fixed part of us, and simply are not us. Just as there is nothing we can grasp, there is no one ultimately to do the grasping. When feelings of fear or discomfort arise in the practice, as they sometimes do, we treat them in the same way, experiencing the feelings in a non-attached way, surrounding them with mindfulness, loving kindness, and realizing that they are not ultimately a part of us. Having explained that the contents of consciousness, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, arise and pass and cannot be clung to, there remains, in the words of the sutra, only equanimity, purified and bright, malleable, wieldy, and radiant. So with the question, what are we? What arises is a sense that we are the universe become aware of itself. That we are nothing more than consciousness, living energy. The mind is inherently pure, luminous, wise, and loving, and that we are beginning to know our intrinsic nature, which is emptiness. And with that comes a sense of curiosity, wonder, openness. The world is more alive. I am less attached to my physical form, and my sense of identification has expanded outward. Everything that has ever passed through my body, the solid matter, air, water, energy, is now out there in the form of fields, clouds, forests, soil, flowers. In a way, those things are all me. And because this very body is made of these same things, I am them. I am no longer separate and small, but an intimate part of the vast cycle of elements, forever weaving, forever intertwining. To live is to let go. And in order to live fully, we must learn to let go fully and to embrace the flow that is the universe. I would like to close with this little poem by John Clare. All nature has a feeling. Woods, fields, brooks are life eternal, and in silence they speak happiness beyond the reach of screens and books. There's nothing mortal in them. Their decay is the green life of change, to pass away and come again in blooms revivified. Its birth was heaven, eternal in its stay, and with the sun and moon shall still abide beneath their day and night, the heavens open wide.